Well, hello, welcome again to the third installment of the Mililani Minute videos for this week. We've been talking about salvation, and we've been asking some pretty important and big, heavy questions that we have to work through. And I hope that these videos have been encouraging to you as you've been working through each one of these questions and answers. Today we've got 3 more questions, so let's jump right into it. The 6th question that we're talking about for this study of salvation is this: what did the animal sacrifices represent? See, yesterday we talked about animal sacrifices, that the people of the Old Testament showed their faith in God by offering animal sacrifices to him. So the question is, what did the animal sacrifices represent? And so that carries us into today. The answer for that is the animal sacrifices represented Jesus, the perfect sacrifice who was to come. As I said yesterday, those animal sacrifices were never fully enough to truly atone for sin. That's why they needed to be done regularly and repeatedly. But they were to represent the coming sacrifice, the sacrifice that we were told about from the very beginning. When Adam and Eve first fell, there was a promise that someday there is going to be an offspring of Eve who would come and basically fix all that went wrong with creation. That he would redeem the creation, that he would rescue the fallen creation. And so these sacrifices were meant to be a small piece or a small picture of the greater sacrifice that was to come. So all throughout the Old Testament, we're familiar with this idea that there were types of Christ, that there were different pictures of Christ, there were different individuals that were meant to point us forward to Christ. Well, there were even actions that were meant to point us forward to Christ's action, and that is these sacrifices. The animal sacrifices represented Jesus, the perfect sacrifice who was to come. I want to go into the next question, where we're asked, how did Jesus, being fully human, make it possible for people to be saved? So if you remember, we talked about Jesus, we talked about the fact that he is, we talked that he is fully human and fully man. Not 50% human, 50% man. He's 100% man. And I said human and man. I'm talking about human and God. So he's 100% human and 100% God. And so how is it possible for Jesus, being fully human, for people to be saved? Because Jesus was fully human, he was able to die the death that sin deserves. So Christ in his deity cannot die. Christ in his humanity could be sacrificed. And that, it's hard for us to really wrap our brains around that. But the truth is that Jesus, being fully human, made it possible for him to, for people to be saved, because Jesus, being fully human, was able to die the death that sin deserves. You see, the wages of sin is death. Paul tells us in the book of Romans. We deserve death, complete and total separation from God because of the weight of our sin. Praise be to God, he sent Jesus, who stood in our place, who accepted the guilt that we deserved and paid that penalty. And he could only do that in his humanity. But now, how is it possible for Jesus, being fully God, to make it possible again for people to be saved? Let me repeat that question. How did Jesus, being fully God, make it possible for people to be saved? Well, the answer to that is because Jesus is fully God, he was able to be the perfect sacrifice for the sins of the world. And the key word there is perfect. He was able to be the perfect sacrifice because in his deity, he did not sin. And in his humanity, he never sinned either. But it was his deity that stopped him from sinning, that never gave over to the temptations of the devil that we see in the wilderness, that he was able to remain unstained from this world. That's something James talks to us about at the end of chapter 1. And so this idea of Jesus living a perfect and sinless life, that's because of his deity. So Jesus, being fully God, because of that, he was able to be the perfect sacrifice for the sins of the world. So when we say, what did these sacrifices represent? It was a picture of Jesus to point us forward to the perfect sacrifice. And both his humanity and his deity were on display in that glorious act that loving act of paying the penalty of our sins. And so again, as I've been saying throughout each of these videos, if you ever have questions or you're unsure of something that's said, because these videos are not meant to be an exhaustive theological study, just simple questions and answers to help you kind of get those conversations started. If you are able, get the book, Cornerstones 200 Questions and Answers Parent Guide. That will help you with devotional material to kind of deepen your study a little bit more. But of course, we would love to engage with you in conversation and talk through some of these questions a little bit more. With all of that being said, we've got 2 more questions that we will take care of tomorrow. So I hope to see you then. Have a great day.